enemy. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Hardcore Casual with your boy Bass the Kid. Now, as I said before, there's quite a lot to talk about, so yeah, dropped one video earlier, here's the second one. So without further ado, please like, subscribe and share. Please, let's get those counters up. I need 400 by the end of the year. I'm hoping I can reach there, and then so next year we can hit that 1,000, that 2,000 and whatever else I may be able to get to. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So Gervonta Davis has been at it again, trying to cause a bit of controversy online. So earlier on in the week, actually it was the end of last week, he basically said that I don't remember if the exact quote was he's got the power to knock out Terence Crawford, or that he would knock out Terence Crawford within 6 rounds. I think it was the former. He's got the power to, if he was to connect on Crawford's chin, he could knock him out. Now, yes, that's true, you could, but the same applies the other way around. And more than likely, him being the much bigger guy, much taller, longer range, hits just as hard as you, quite possibly, if not harder pound for pound. Maybe you hit harder than him pound for pound, I don't know, but either way, he hits hard enough that you're not just going to be able to steam in on him. He's not going to allow you enough opportunities to throw counter punches, which is what you like to do, rather than to actually box. So it's a bit of a weird statement, but it was made, it caused a bit of a stir. Cool, people had their back and forths about it, and that was that. But then on, I think it was Sunday, he basically took aim at Tim Bradley for Tim Bradley getting inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame. I can't remember exactly the words he said because I haven't seen the entire quote, but I do remember the aftermath. And Tim Bradley was basically saying to him, like, at the end of the day, like, I don't care what you've got to say, like, I'm in the Hall of Fame. But what I will say to you is that every single person you faced in your career, I eat them. I eat them up clean, like no problems, no issues, no work. But could you eat up everyone that was on my resume? And he basically said, like, look, things is different over here. And you know what? Again, I've got to agree, because I don't see Tank beating Porodnikov. I don't see Tank beating Manny Pacquiao, like the old Manny Pacquiao, not the old Manny Pacquiao. Yeah, the Manny Pacquiao of old. Juan Manuel Marquez. I mean, there's some very credible big names on you know, on Tim Bradley's resume, and thus far we're still talking about Pedraza for Tank. Like Leo Santa Cruz don't count, too small. Mario Barrios, no, that one ain't it. Yuriorkis Gamboa, like, you fought the shell of Yuriorkis Gamboa, who had one leg for 11 of the rounds before you finally got the stoppage. Who else? Isaac Cruz, who nobody knew before you fought him. Well, okay, people in the industry knew, but nobody knew who he was, and literally he's only got famous off of losing to you by decision, whereas everyone else seems to get knocked out. Rolly Romero, like, there's no names on the record that suggest that you should be talking to Tim Bradley in any way, shape or form about his credentials to get into the Boxing Hall of Fame. Like, I'm sorry, it just, that's just a disrespect. But you know, if you're gonna disrespect, better you disrespect guys that are still active in it, guys that you can actually see in the ring. Because don't get me wrong, Hector Garcia that's a good opponent, but again, that's another guy that's below your current weight class. You don't fight at 130 no more, you're a 135/140 pounder, right? So why are you now bringing up a next 130 pounder to come up to 135 to fight you? It starts to look funny in the light, Tank. I'm sorry, it just does. But yeah, in terms of Tim Bradley, I mean, look, he handled that work all his own, so I don't really need to say too much on it. But it's just to highlight that, yeah, Tank be on his BS, and it seems like he only ever does this when a fight is already signed and sealed. When he's out of fight camp and when he ain't got nothing going on, he don't be speaking to other boxers crazy. As soon as a fight's signed, that's when, oh, I'll fight you, I'll take you on next, and and then that never happens. Like, it's getting a bit boring now, if I'm gonna be honest. So like, we need to clean that shit up. Let's be real. So over the last day or so, I've watched 2 different interviews with Lawrence Okolie. One on IFL and the other one on Boxing King Media. So big shout outs to Boxing King Media. That interview actually was the much better of the 2. So if you haven't seen that one, I would definitely suggest watching that, because it seemed like it was a lot more structured and Lawrence gave more complete and detailed answers with regard to the situation that's gone on between himself and Matchroom. Now, look, when the whole thing came out, I, like a lot of people, were, for lack of, I don't want to say I was Team Eddie, but I was definitely on the Matchroom side, because I was looking at it like, okay, you say this guy owes you a fight, he's been trying to get deals from other people, someone's obviously shown him some money, and they're trying to, you know, break the contract or whatever. You sent, so from what I can tell, they sent cease and desist letters to Sky saying, look, well, he's still our fighter, he's got a fight left, like, you can't just be trying to poach people, you know, carry on and, you know, you'll get sued, which is fair. But that same thing being said, I mean, it is looking a bit Frank Warren-ish, and I said this the other day. You look, there was the Jake Paul lawsuit, I get it, he said that you was bribing judges and referees and stuff, and I get from a marketing and a PR perspective, that's not what you want, so you're like, look, we'll sue, which is a very American thing to do more than a UK thing. But you've always been the guy advocating against not doing that. So yeah, there's certain things started to change, and then you got the Lawrence thing. Is like, you've always said, well, if someone's not happy, they can go, but on this occasion, no, well, he's got a fight left and you want him to honor that fight. And yeah, just all strange. But anyway, Lawrence Okolie's come out and he's basically said that he was, for lack of a better way, he was under gag order from Matchroom not to be able to speak about this situation. So while Eddie's going out sort of giving his, you know, £1, his 2 pence, his 50 pence into what's going on, Lawrence isn't being able to speak and he's become frustrated. And ultimately at that point, he's put out the Django tweet with, you know, Monsieur Candy, and basically insinuating that Eddie Hearn is similar to him. Now, he has admitted that the tweet itself, he didn't really think about it in the full context when he put it out, and he was the one that deleted it because he didn't mean it to have the racial connotations and the whole slave owners and stuff. And when he realized that that's kind of how it came across, he deleted it, and I think he's even apologized, saying, you know, that's not what I meant, so apologies from that aspect. You know, I don't think Eddie Hearn is that type of guy and whatnot. So we got that part cleared up. But basically he said that in his mind, he was just like, he was frustrated, he couldn't get, he's tried to speak to Eddie, he can't get a hold of Eddie, he's being told he can't speak on this, he's being told he's got this fight, he wants to make more money and he's not being able to make this money. So it's almost like Eddie Hearn was just like, you know, he was just controlling his fate and wouldn't, you know, didn't allow him to prosper and to do better than what he's been doing. Now, he also said that he's gone through several different lawyers or legal advice, and every single person has basically said that you don't owe him a fight. And he says the reason they believe he owes him a fight is because when he was supposed to face Glavatsky during that lockdown period, the fight didn't happen at that point. I think it's because that's when lockdown was just starting. and he wasn't able to get Glavatsky over here, so they gave him a fight to keep him busy, keep him active and keep him warm. And to them, that fight wasn't a part of his deal that he had, whereas for him, he said that he hadn't signed anything different, any amendment to say, well, no, like this fight is outside of your current contract. So yeah, it's all a bit sticky. The only thing I can possibly think is every contract has a force majeure clause in it, saying if there's, you know, acts of nature that stop things from happening outside our control, you know, we have the right to either I think it's like we can amend or we can protect ourselves, you know, legally based on that particular circumstance. So I don't know if maybe they're claiming that there was a force majeure, and because that fight happened during a period whereby you couldn't get the necessary you know, sort of the necessary people in and out of the country because you know, for whatever reason, maybe that's the reason why they would act and say that doesn't count towards the contract. But my biggest thought for this whole thing was always, all right, so Lawrence says that he's a free agent and he doesn't owe them a fight. Well, if you don't owe them a fight, why are you not already signed to Sky Sports and Boxer, or Frank Warren and Queensbury, or Top Rank, or, you know, Pro Bellum, MTK, whoever was out there, like, you know, PBC? Like, why are you still not fighting? Because if you're out of contract, you can legally then walk into any other deal that you so choose, and there's nothing that the other company can do. So it leads me to believe that Eddie Hearn was correct. Because if, like I said, if you've got a contract in place that's now null and void, or it's now expired, you could then be able to go and sign another contract straight away. If you truly believe you don't have this fight, sign a new contract. Because I can almost guarantee, if Matchroom really knew you didn't have one and they was just trying to find a way to stop you from being able to go to one of their rivals, once you go to that rival, they ain't going to pay legal fees against it. And if they did, Boxer would probably put up the money on the other side and say, have at it, because we've seen the contract, there's nothing there. So unless it was just a case of he literally had no idea what was going on for like 9-10 months, and that's the reason why he hasn't fought or anything, then all right, cool, I get that. And maybe the resolution is now the fact that because this purse bid thing's coming up, that technically, because it is another fight that would be under contract, if you bid for it, then you get that final fight. If you don't bid for it, then it counts as a fight off of the contract, but you still actually get money back. So that does seem to be the best option. Now, whether they go and bid for it, I don't know. But the other thing that Lawrence Okolie did say, which I will agree with also, is when he said that you say that I've lost you money on numerous events, like I've cost you money. So then if I'm losing you money, why are you so desperate to keep me to then lose you money again? And I totally agree with that. However, he said, and I think he alluded to the fact, and I think Eddie kind of did as well, based on I won't be disrespected. And the disrespect has clearly come from the tweets and how he felt when he first saw those tweets. And even Lawrence realized, shit, that's probably not the right way to have done things myself. So if that's the case, then it's petty. And is it just, you know, cutting off your nose to spite your face? Because you're still going to lose money on another event, but maybe at that point you put him in against like a really hard task, and if he loses, then you've got options on the other person, and if he wins, then at least he's, you know, maybe he's a bit beat up, or you get some extra subs for his own based on the fact he actually put on a really good performance. I'm not sure. The only other thing I can possibly think of is that he had ideas of having him on one of those Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Saudi Arabia type shows, whereby he's not actually footing the bill for it, but Lawrence having another world champion on there could maybe just get him additional money from, you know, from the investors and the backers, and it's just like another a big fight to put on the card to say, look, this card is stacked. We've got like another world champion on there. We've got the WBO cruiserweight champion on there, about to have a unification or a very tough, you know, fight from the top 15 or whatever it is. But then that might be like an additional attraction to that card. That's the only other reason I could think of why he wanted to keep him under contract at that point, and to say, well, look, finish this fight and then you can be on your way. But then also with regards to like this whole situation, again, if Matchroom and that said that you've got one fight left, and then you're like, well, no, well, I'm not gonna fight for you for peanuts when other people are offering me more money. But you couldn't take that money because for whatever reason you haven't signed that contract. So you've been out of the ring for what, 9 coming up to 10 months, not really doing much, so you're not getting paid at this point. So would it not have made sense to just do the fight, say, okay, well, look, these are the opponents that I'm prepared to fight before my mandatory, so I want a voluntary against XYZ. Whatever my mandatory minimum is, fine, I'll take that, get that fight out the way, be out the door, and then you could have had 3 fights this year and made 3 sets of money instead of only making 1, which probably wasn't the greatest of paydays. Hence why you're now, you know, your head has been turned by bigger investment from other people. Now, whether those prices stay where they are or go down, just a totally different subject. I'm not sure. I'm just thinking to myself, like, when I look at it, it looks funny in the light. It looks mad. So yeah, there's not really much else I can say about it. Like, clearly there's right and there's wrong on both sides. I don't know whose story is the most accurate, but yeah, as I said, it doesn't make sense that you were a free agent, that you were out of contract, yet you couldn't sign any other contracts and deals. It doesn't make sense from Eddie's perspective that he's lost so much money on you but wants to keep you for one last fight, unless it's to what I said from like the Abu Dhabi type thing. And then yeah, just in terms of how you've handled it, cool, you've given some context. I kind of understand certain things was going on, you weren't too happy about that, had to kind of lay out, and you've done that. So look, ultimately we'll see where we get to. I hope it gets resolved quick. It looks like it will be, with the fight against David Light coming up next. Whoever bids for that gets that, and then, you know, Lawrence gets to move on and sail off into the sunset. So all good, and we'll see basically what happens after that. So cool. You know what, I'm gonna leave it there, guys. I've covered quite a bit, so hopefully you've liked what I've had to say. If you haven't, please put in the comments anything you disagree with. Like, please let me know. I'm all ears. I'm happy to listen, I'm happy to respond. With that being said, I'm gonna leave it there. So for right now, Hardcore Casual out.